After appearing as both the protagonist and antagonist in Donkey Kong and its sequel, Donkey Kong Jr., respectively, Mario moved on to star in his own series and recruited his younger brother Luigi for his first game appearance too, in Mario Bros. This arcade game was ported to several consoles, including this one, the Atari 2600 version in 1983. The premise is that Mario, who's still portrayed as a carpenter, and his brother Luigi have a serious problem. The water pipes in their house are being clogged up with nests of pesky creatures. So they take it upon themselves to wipe out all these pricks one by one. To take them out, you have to smash them from the floor underneath, and while they're momentarily dazed, hop up and knock them off the screen. I did say momentarily dazed, so that means you have to do this quick or they'll spring back up. There's the iconic Koopa Troopers, who at this point were called Shell Creepers. They just walk around, your basic low-level enemy. The sidesteppers are crabs you have to bump twice to knock unconscious. After the first shot, they'll speed up, so don't do this when they're close to the edge or you won't have enough time to get both shots in and he'll be faster. And finally, there's the fighter flies that hop around. The only time you can knock these guys over is to bump them when they're on the floor. These are the enemies you have to kill to move on to the next round. But they're not the only hazards. There's also fireballs that shoot their way across the screen, and slip ice, this bastard that freezes up the floor, making travel more difficult. You can take out slip ice, but the fireballs are invincible. Slip ice will start showing up in the later levels, while the fireballs are there pretty much the whole time. You can play with 1 or 2 players. In multiplayer mode, you can either cooperate to advance as far as you can together, or you can compete for the higher score and utilize underhanded tactics like knocking a disabled enemy back onto its feet while the other player is about to knock them off. This makes for some potential backstabbing if you want to convince the other player that you're on their side, lull them into a false sense of security, and then Pearl Harbor them. Even if you work together, your selfishness may come to the forefront because 20,000 points will reward you with an extra life. So if you're cooperating, you have to make a decision on whether or not to let the player with less lives get a majority of the points to get his lives back, or just simply play it out like normal and let natural selection run its course. You get points from bumping off enemies, but after every few rounds you'll get a coin bonus, although they look more like blue orbs than coins. You have 15 seconds to collect all of them, so once again you have your options in the 2-player mode about being cutthroat or functioning as a unit. Every time you knock an enemy off screen, this flashy thing that's supposed to be a wafer will show up. Grabbing it will give you some extra points, and both the wafer and knocking enemies off screen will result in 800 points, so there's no advantage to wiping out the enemy or eating the wafer. In fact, if one player is better at taking out enemies and you want to work as a team, you can have one person stationed lower to knock the enemies on their ass and eat the wafers that show up, while the other finishes the job on all the disabled enemies. There's also a rectangular block down here called the POW block. Smashing it will knock all the on-screen enemies on their ass, but you can only use it 3 times every 10 rounds, and it's not exponential either. After the 10th round, when it resets, it's still 3 times maximum. It won't add 3 to whatever total you have. The best bet is to use this when there are a lot of enemies on the screen and you think you might have trouble knocking them over without getting hit by something else. There aren't any difficulty options. The only variations you can choose is 1 or 2 players, start with 3 or 5 lives, and you can turn the fireballs on or off. The controls are responsive, but there's a few issues that could have been tweaked. For example, you can't change your direction in midair while jumping, and if you get a running start, your trajectory is always the same. And jumping is a huge part of this game, so the stiffness in the jumping controls should have been tightened up a bit. And when you stop yourself while running, you'll glide considerably, making the surface feel very slippery. Speaking of running, the sound of your footsteps is pretty irritating. It sounds like a pack of wild horses galloping across a pavement road. Is that necessary? It's no big deal, but it can wear on you if you don't have a high tolerance for that kind of thing. Another shortcoming is there's only one screen. The enemies change shifts, but the platforms are always laid out the same. But that doesn't make the game monotonous. There's enough variety in the enemies, and their increased speed as the game goes on along with the fireballs will keep you on your toes. And the bonus coins, wafers, and POW blocks add a few spices to keep things interesting. It's not a perfect port, and it's not the deepest game in the world to begin with, but it's a fun little platformer that established Mario as a lead character, setting the stage for bigger things to come.
Something's coming up the plumbing, poor Luigi's in a bind. Giant turtles out to get him, creepy crabs are right behind. Spider flies, jeepers, yikes, they're all coming out the pipes.